Hi there, and welcome to your practice at this moment, at this time. Maybe it's early in the morning, maybe it's really late at night. Any time of day, I'm here for you. So let's begin. This practice will be focused around spinal rotations. So I'm going to try to dig into some new and interesting ways to move our spine from side to side and to find, not that just we can kind of lean side to side, we can fold front and back, but we can also rotate slightly internally. Some of our hips attached to that spine. So let's go for a little spinal adventure together. So it feels nice for you to begin in a seated shape, then feel free to come into a little cross-legged seat. Even if you have a wall, you can prop your back up against the wall, that's fine too. And if you'd prefer to lay down, lay down. So we'll just take a moment to settle into our space, onto our mats, and breathe. Simply, steady, peacefully. In through the nose and out through the nose. And if you find you need a nice good sigh out of the mouth, then let a sigh out of the mouth. Just to give yourself the time you need to arrive on your mat. To come into your body, into your breath. And just notice what's happening inside of you at this moment in time. Perhaps we have more of an attachment to our left side of our brain, so our more analytical, calculative, logical mind. Just wondering, why are we sitting here? Why are we in this cross-legged shape? Or why are we laying down? And then trickling into the right side of your brain, the creative, expansive side. So to find a little adventure through the body. So as we breathe in, imagine that oxygen flowing not just into your lungs, but also out into your arms and your legs. We know oxygen tends to, or the breath tends to stay in the chest, but we also know it enters out through the blood and starts to come out through your fingertips and your toes and circulate through all of your bloodstream. So as we start to dive into the body, we can imagine that oxygen penetrating all of our muscles, our tendons, the fabric of the muscles. And we can even imagine the fabric of the bones. It's a solid, seemingly solid bone, but has these porousness to it, and the oxygen can come in, and we have this life inside of the bones, the marrow in the bones. So let your mind wander a little bit here, breathing in, allowing that magical journey to take hold, to go in and out. And as you breathe out, we're not just expelling the something we don't need, we're also sharing something and giving something to the earth, giving something to the environment. So breathe in and take all of those things that are good for you, given to us by nature. And exhale, remember that you are a part of nature, you are nature. And if we're seated, let's just start to bring our hands to the outsides of the thighs. We'll close our knees like a book. Find yourself about halfway down your mat so that you can roll yourself onto your back. Just take a moment to settle in. And we can bring our knees in toward the chest. Give yourself a little hug in, little squeeze, maybe even a little rock side to side or circling those knees. And if you have something available to you, just an object. So I have a block here by my side. It does not have to be a block. So even if you have a pair of socks or you have a scarf that you set aside, you can find it and just make sure it's near your mat. So it can be anything. It can even be a balled up pair of socks. So we'll figure that out when we get there. Just giving yourself a squeeze. Then setting the feet down with your knees bent and planting your feet down. Maybe you like to bring your heels in a little closer to your bum if that feels comfortable for you to do. You could do that. And bring the hands along sides of the body with the palms facing down. And all we're going to try to do is walk the fingers toward the toes. So we're kind of creeping the shoulders down our back, sliding our shoulders, the tops of the shoulders away from the ears. And then as we inhale, start to just push into the feet and aim the knees away from you to the end of your mat. So we're just starting to lift the pelvis up, lift the hip bones up. Any amount, let the chin tuck toward the chest, and just take a big breath in as you open the front and the top of the body. And exhale, we'll release the body back down. We'll take just a couple more, just as easy, just as gentle. Let yourself land all the way, release the pressure, release the weight. And then inhale, push into your feet. Aiming your knees away from you, rolling into the shoulders. Just take a moment. And then when you're ready, when your exhale starts to excrete out of your nose or your mouth, just letting your hips come down. And we'll do one more, taking a big breath in. You can keep your eyes closed or open them. It's absolutely up to you. Just a big breath in, a big reach up. And then exhale, coming back in and down. And then draw the knees in toward your chest, wrap your arms around. Maybe you hold onto your shins, or you wrap your arms all the way around and rock a little onto your back. And we'll take each shin into each hand. So just holding onto your shins, let your knees separate. So just let them spread out. And we're not really pulling or doing anything with the arms. They're just kind of holding in space, and also just the natural weight of your arms are kind of prying open your hips. So we're just letting those legs and knees fall open. You can wiggle your toes and your feet. And just start to notice the base of your spine. So we're going to move through our spine a little bit here at the base. And we can feel this kind of space that feels pretty solid that we're balancing on. So can we just let the knees fall away from the body a little bit? So extend the arms as long as you can extend them. Let your hips kind of tilt down and back, down and forward to the end of your mat. So we're rolling close to the tailbone. And then pull your knees toward you, bending just the elbows, gently rocking across this solid space. So we're gently rocking across our sacrum. You can let your knees fall away, just extending the arms. And then we'll just go for this little easy rock. So we notice that there's this little bit of rounding at the base of the spine. So you can bring those in and out. And then as we start to let go and soften here, even the thoughts in our mind, the judgments and expectations we might have, we can let those kind of fall away. You might feel your knees or your thighs softening, and maybe they're letting go and opening a little wider. So just continue to breathe. You can start to match your movement with your breath if you like to, in and out. Maybe as you move your knees away and rock to the end near your tailbone, you breathe in. And then as you gather yourself in, you can squeeze the air out of your body. And just one or two more times, seeing how that feels for you. And then when you're ready, bring your knees back in, set your feet down. So knees about hip width apart and feet just underneath. You can again walk your feet in a little bit here. So we're just going to bring those hands back down to that position we were in. Walk the fingers toward your feet, and the shoulders kind of creep up a little. And then inhale, start to bring the tail up. Reach the chest, reach the pelvis upward, point the knees to the end of your mat, and push down through your feet. So let's see if we can soften up our bum cheeks a little, soften up those big glutes, and just push in and down through your feet. Lifting, lengthening through your hip flexors, through that upper bit of your leg. And then you can push down through your hands as well in the backs of your arms. We'll just stay here for another breath. Just a big breath in and out. Another breath in to reach one last time. And exhale, slowly releasing the hips, and really feel that amount of space that you have. So take your time, and then when you find your body finally landing down, we can feel the flesh spread away. Open up your palms toward the sky, and just start to walk your feet out to the edges of your mat. We'll windshield wipe those legs. So you can move your hands out of the way if they're in the way, or you can leave them laying down. We're just going to kind of wiggle and rock into the sides of the sacrum. So we found that kind of bump in the middle. Then we're going to find the little edges on the sides. And let's see how else we can move our spine. So I'm just going to move myself over a little bit. So I'm a little bit closer to the wall. So make sure that you have room to spread open your arms. So bring them open nice and wide. So really, really wide. I might be coming off of the screen a little bit, sorry about that. Just reaching those arms out wide. I have a little bit of a wall here, so ideally you'd be able to reach your fingers out nice and far. And whatever object you have available to you, so maybe it is just a pair of socks, maybe it is a block or some sort of yoga prop that you have in your little personal space. We're just gonna place it in the right hand and reach the arm out long. So again, you might not be able to see in the screen me reaching my arm out. There's quite a width here. And then we're gonna cross our body with this block and pass the block into the left hand, allowing your right shoulder to roll up off the ground. And maybe you even find more of your spine rolls up off the ground. Let that block go, open up your arm without the block, and roll back onto the ground. Beautiful. So then we'll go back into the left hand, reach with your right arm, roll up off your shoulder. So we're more focusing on the rolling of the shoulder than the object. And the object can come back and open the chest. So we'll just do that a couple more times. Reaching across the body, rolling to the side, passing that block or object to your left hand, and then opening up your right arm. So go ahead and a couple more times, just going with the flow, picking it up. Maybe you even reach the block or place it a little farther to your left so that you can reach a little farther and squeeze into your abdominals a little more. So the block is here for the left side of our brain. It's here for a little bit of purpose, a little bit of calculative action. So we'll go back across and then we'll open up and bring the block back over with us. And we'll go across once more. So let's reach over with the left hand now. Reach over, you don't have the block in your hand. Reach toward your right hand, grab your block or your object, and then open up your arm fully. So hopefully you can open up your arm all the way and you don't have a wall in the way. And then reach back over with that block to your right hand. Pass it into your right hand. And then open up your left arm. We'll do this motion just a couple of times. So we're just going ahead and opening. We're going over and reaching, rolling into the shoulder. And then grabbing the block or object and then opening up the arm. Passing it over. Placing it in the hand. And then opening it up. So we have this purpose of grabbing and letting go. So your left brain is satisfied with that motion. And then our right brain can get curious into this upper spine and see how much we're rolling over, how much we're opening. So one last time, reach it over top of yourself. Place whatever you have into your right hand. Open up your left arm. And then we'll go and grab that object back again. Roll all the way, maybe even a little farther. Reach, reach, reach. And then open yourself up. And we'll just place the block to the side. So take a moment to just kind of put your object aside. And then we'll wiggle ourselves back onto our mat if we needed more room for the wall. Bring your heels back in, palms are down by your side. Inhale to reach the hips up, to send the knees away. And we'll keep those hips rolled up. Open up your arms into a T shape, so into a little cactus sort of shape. So we're bending at the elbows. And the elbows are just sort of in line with your shoulders. We'll press into the backs of the arms, send your knees away from you, lift your hips up, and see if you can just push into your feet and release the glutes. So I like to kind of push down through the feet and then push them away from me to see if I can come up onto the shoulders, so I can tuck the chin toward the chest, opening up the quads a little more. Keep pushing down through the backs of your arms. And then open up your arms really wide in a T shape if you can. Reach across yourself with your left hand over to your right hand. So see if you can just reach toward that right hand, lifting up the left shoulder. And then open up that arm and land back on the shoulder. And then we'll do the same with the right side. We'll reach over with the right arm, picking up the shoulder, push through your feet, keep your hips lifted, and then opening up the arm. So we'll do this 2 more times for each side. Lifting your left arm up, reaching over to your right hand, lifting your shoulder, squeezing into that lower abdominal, and then opening up. And then the right side, over toward the left, reach with a straight arm, as straight as you can, over to the side, lifting the shoulder, and come back down. We'll do 1 more for each side. So open up your left, reach across, push through your left foot, notice the pressure there, the difference in your hip and your leg, and then open up. 1 last time for the right side. Reach across, lift up the shoulder, push through your right foot, notice the shift in the weight, And then open back up. We'll set our hips back down. Exhale, soften all the way down. Bring the knees in toward your chest. Come into that nice little sweet sacral space and rock into that space. If you have a little bit of tension, maybe above the sacrum, you can bring your knees a little closer, squeeze yourself in. Maybe you pick up your chin or your nose and draw it toward your knees. Get a little higher up in your spine, a little more into the mid-back. And then crossing the ankles, bring your hands to the backs of the legs so you can rock along your spine, however many times feels nice. And then we'll come up through a seat and into all fours. So if you like to cross your legs and then plant your hands in front of you to come forward and uncross the legs, coming into about halfway down the mat. So set yourself up into a tabletop shape on your hands and your knees, making sure that your wrists are under your shoulders and your knees are underneath your hips. And you can tuck your toes or not. I tend to tuck my toes almost every single time when I'm in an all fours shape. So maybe I could switch it up every once in a while. So let's start to find those wrists. So we'll bend a little into the wrists, lean forward, lean back, lean side to side. Just take a moment, a tender, compassionate moment on these wrists. It's quite a crease, quite a bend. And maybe you circle a little bit with the torso. And just one or two more breaths, finding your wrists, tucking or untucking your toes, seeing what feels right for your body in this shape. You might be able to bring your knees a little wider, your hands just a bit wider. We'll move through a couple cat and cows so you can close your eyes and imagine this spine. Imagine all the ways we can move our spine. So inhale to take the tail up, tilting the tailbone up, dropping the edges of your hips down, the front edge of your hips, the bottom of your rib cage. Use the grip of your hands to tug your heart in between your shoulders, lift your chin and your chest forward. Stay here for a full breath, hugging your back body, opening up your front waist and your front body, your front space. And then just the tail starts to tilt in. So gather that tail in, round through that sacral space, push down through your hands to continue rippling through your spine, and take your time to journey through the spine. Tuck your chin in toward the chest. Stay for a full breath. And then your next inhale, the wave starts to come through your tailbone. You feel the edges of the front of your hips pointing down, rotating down, rippling through your spine. Use your hands, pull them toward your knees, press away, and find a lift. We'll just do two more, coming in, rounding through all the way up the spine, into the neck, tuck the chin. And then inhale or exhale, maybe your breath switched up a little bit, and that's okay. Coming forward and up. And one more time, down and curling in, sending the center of your spine up toward the sky. You can be as dramatic as you like to, rounding up, and then opening up your tail, tilting forward and up. So come back to a neutral sort of shape, so we're balancing on our wrists and our knees. We'll tuck the toes if they aren't already. And then start to push through your hands to lift your knees up, push through your toes. Start to lift your knees and then push your hands away from you to send those hips up and back to downward dog. So you can bring your hands a little bit wider if you like. You can walk your feet a little wider and take a moment here to stretch out into the legs. So maybe this is our very first down dog, even in a couple of days or maybe just in a couple of hours. So you can sway your hips side to side. You can bend your knees and tuck your toes. Send the backs of your knees out. Your heels do not have to touch ever in a downward dog, and you can have soft knees every time if that feels good. So we're just pushing our fingertips away from the tail, finding a long line from the pointer finger to our tailbone. And then pull your hands apart from each other. Use the grip of the mat to feel strength and stability. And we'll come through a little flow here. So we're lifting the heels up, rippling ourselves forward into plank, shoulders over wrists. If your knees are lifted, continue to push yourself forward or lower your knees, and then gently glide down to your belly. So finding the pelvis grounded, finding the tops of your feet. Zip the elbows in. Inhale to reach up with the chest and the chin. Exhale to curl back in, tuck the toes under, come up and back to down dog. So you can use your knees to unfold yourself and come back up if you like. Take another breath, another little sway. Inhale to look between your thumbs, lots of breath. Exhale to use your core power to walk yourself forward, coming into a forward fold. And you can let your upper body relax over your legs.
can let your head hang off of your neck. You could soften your knees. You can hold on to opposite elbows. Just take a moment of breath here. Inhale, exhale, just enjoy. If your lower back is a little tender, we could stay at a half lift with the hands to shins. Give yourself a little support. And then we'll drop the fingers down if we've grabbed our elbows. Inhale to a half lift, hands to those shins. Straighten out the arms and just start to look forward so we can squeeze into the shoulder blades. So hopefully if you start to draw your gaze or your chin forward, you can feel those little spinal extensors squeezing between your blades. One more big breath in. And exhale, gather your belly so you can fold a little deeper. Again, inhale a half lift, reaching forward and up. Halfway up, exhale to fold. Push through your feet, inhale, rise up or roll up. Take your time if you like, lifting your fingers up to the sky. Exhale, snuggling into heart center. Inhale to reach the arms up. And exhale to fold over your legs, soften the knees, hinge through the hips, fold over, let your fingers go. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, release. Inhale, rise up, push through your feet, lift your fingertips up. And then exhale, fold all the way down. Come all the way through, release yourself down. Inhale to half lift. And exhale to fold. We'll fold so deep you could plant your hands. You can hop or step back to plank. And we'll find a little flow if that calls to you. So inhale through your plank. Exhale to lower down to your belly. Soft landing if you can. Inhale, tops of the feet press, pelvis grounds, lifting up into a back bend. And then bring your exhale down and back into your downward dog. Take a moment to breathe, a moment to sway and notice. Inhale, look between your thumbs. Exhale, hop or step or baby walk toward your hands. Inhale, a half lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to rise. Let's warm ourselves up. Give ourselves some flow. Find every piece of the body. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale to reach up again. We'll come into fold. So exhale, release the body down. Fold over your legs. Find your fingertips here, so bend your knees as much as you need to. We'll pick up that left leg and step it back on an angle. Step the foot on an angle. We'll bend the front knee. Give yourself some room between your heels, so lots of space for your hips. Push through your front foot with your knee bent. Inhale to reach the torso up and the arms alongside the ears. And just rest the shoulders down. Just rest them down into the sockets. Just like you're maybe a little micro bend in the elbows. Push your front foot forward and start to press into the outer blade of your back foot. So you might feel like you're being tugged a little to the left and we're drawing our torso to the front. So find that little bit of tug in your hip, that little bit of rotation in your spine. Inhale to reach the arms up. And then exhale to fall back down. Planting those hands, tuck your left toe and hop it forward to meet your right. Inhale to half lift. Exhale, fold over. All these flows, inhale, reach up, are for your left side of your brain. It's a little calculative movement. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale to reach up. And exhale to fall back down. Fold over your legs. Find your fingertips. Pick up your right foot, step it back. Put your foot on an angle and check your heels. Give yourself lots of room in between. Bend your front knee, push down through your front foot. Inhale again to reach your arms and your torso up. And then relax the shoulders down. So maybe a little bend in the elbows. Push your front foot forward and start to press into the outer blade of your back foot. So like we did on the left, you feel a tug to the right this time, and then we bring our torso and pelvis facing front. Inhale, reaching the arms up. Big reach. Exhale, fall forward, plant your fingers, tuck your right toes and step them forward to meet your left. Inhale, a half lift. Exhale, fold deeply. Take 2 breaths in your fold. Let your head relax. Maybe you shake your head no and yes. And just letting your arms be heavy. Let those shoulder blades kind of slide down toward the ground. Breathe deeply into your body. You might even cross your arms in front of you and hold your opposite elbows to feel that openness in your spine, to feel the openness in your shoulder blades. And if we did cross our arms, we'll cross them the other way, just to make sure we feel balanced and our left brain is happy. Big breath in and out. Release the fingers. Inhale to half lift. Keep this half lift shape. Reach your arms forward, push into the balls of your feet, and then take a breath and reach yourself up. Push yourself up. Inhale. Exhale, hands to the center of the chest. And then we'll just pick up our right foot so that we can step it back to face the long end of the mat. So we turn and pivot ourselves to face that long end. And pointing the toes slightly in and the heels slightly out. And take a moment, bring your hands to your hips and just check and see how this feels. Maybe your feet feel a little too far apart or a little too close together. And just take a moment. And then inhale to reach the arms alongside the ears. Let your heart be tugged upward. Let your bum be kind of pulled back. So we have this little bitty back bend. And then fold over the center. So come in through. And if you do have a block to your advantage, if you need a little bit of height in the ground, you can bring it under your fingers. If your fingers touch the ground, that's good too. So again, you might find some adjustment here. You might find your toes pointing in, your heels a little bit farther out, or just lengthening your stance. Bringing your fingers to point forward, just take a moment to let your torso fall between your legs. So again, let your head drip off of your neck. Take a moment to breathe here, in and out, in and out. And can we imagine our kneecaps? Can we try to lift them up? Try to draw them up, engaging them, pushing your feet away from each other, using the grip of the mat, pulling them away, lifting the kneecaps, feeling the quads lift as well. The back of the legs probably feel a little longer, and then we might be able to tug the belly in, using our lower abdominal power so we can pull it in and let ourselves fold over even more. One more breath here. Folding over the legs. And then softening everything up, coming back to about halfway so we can bring our fingertips to the ground. Start to point your toes slightly out and your heels slightly in, bending into the knees. So we'll bend into the knees just a comfortable amount, if that's relative to you. And then maybe we just start to sink a little deeper. So as you find yourself bending and setting those hips downward, you might find your feet want to turn out a little more, your heels want to turn in a little more. So finding our hips somewhat in line with the knees. And our fingertips are there to support us, or a block is there to support us, something is there to support us. So we push the feet down and then push them away from each other so we can find a little stability. We're going to try to keep our legs exactly where they are. So try to keep those knees and thighs exactly where they are. And we're simply going to walk our fingertips over to the right. So we're just walking with our fingertips. We're stretching through the arms, stretching through the torso, giving a little twist here. So reaching your left shoulder over, squeezing your right side together. So you can even draw your right shoulder toward the inner line of your right leg and allow that left space to open up. So just take another couple of breaths here, pushing your feet away, sinking the hips down. Big breath. And then walking past the center. Take a moment to feel it out, to feel that centering and balance, and then walking over to the left. Keep your hips exactly where they started. Push them away from each other. Hugging your left shoulder toward the inner line of your left leg, and then opening up your right side. So you can almost pick up your right shoulder and draw it toward the left. One more big breath. And then back to center. And start to straighten up the legs, turn the toes in, the heels out. Let yourself fall between your torso, fold over, let the crown of your head go. Shake the weight of your head if that feels good. And then pointing your fingertips behind you, bringing your arms sort of underneath and in between your legs, so underneath your torso and in between those feet. And if this feels pretty good on the wrist, then feel free to just start to push your hands downward. If it feels better to walk a little farther, you can walk your hands a little farther behind you. Press your hands down. So straight in the elbows, straight in the arms, and then pressing those hands down. Let your crown come down. Notice that sensation. You can pick up your kneecaps. You can sink a little deeper. Maybe that requires you or asks you to walk your hands a little farther back. We're going to stay here for another couple of breaths. So still pushing the hands down, feeling into the forearms. So if you climb at all, then this is a familiar sensation. If you're a boulderer, you might kind of feel the hint of a familiar feeling in your forearms. Just one more breath, pushing the hands down. And then bring the hands back forward. Start to pick yourself up into a half lift. So we'll inhale to half lift up on the fingers or the block. And then exhale, hands to your hips. Inhale, push through your feet to lift your torso up. We'll come back up to standing. And then turn your toes slightly out, your heels slightly in. Inhale to reach the arms up. Exhale to bring the elbows toward your ribs and bend the knees outwards. So we'll kind of squat down, shoulders over top of the hips. Inhale, straightening everything up, reaching up as high as you can, maybe the thumbs touch. And exhale, squeezing down, sitting down. Inhale, reaching up. And exhale, squatting down, squeezing down, elbows in toward the ribs. Inhale, reaching up. And then this time, we'll start to hinge through the hips. Hinge the hips down, bow forward, scoop the ground with your hands, crossing them over each other, push through your feet, and then lift your body up, straightening the legs. So a little bit of a different. We'll squat down, and then hinge the hips, bow forward, cross your arms in front of one another, open up, lift up, straighten up. And then squatting down, hinging the hips, bowing forward, crossing those arms, pushing through the feet to lift up. And you can move in whatever speed feels good for you. Maybe you like to move a little quicker, crossing the arms and reaching up. So perhaps we speed it up. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. Couple more times. Exhale, inhale, exhale. Inhale, reach up. Hands toward the center of the chest. So we'll start to bend into the knees again. And whatever you have near you, so even if you have a pair of socks that are balled up, or you have a scarf, or you have something, or you have a block, we'll place it in front of ourselves. And we'll squat down into those knees. We're going to place the back of your right forearm on top of your right thigh. And the left leg can be bent a little or a lot. It doesn't really matter. It's just there to kind of stabilize ourselves in this shape. So we're leaning more into the right side, the knee over top of the ankle. I like to point the palm upward, so there's this bit of stability here. My left brain can kind of connect to that. And then your left arm, your left hand can grab whatever object you have. And again, it is just to connect your left brain to something, a purpose. So it doesn't have to be anything. It can be a pair of socks. It can be anything. Or it can be nothing. It doesn't really matter. So we're just going to go ahead and weave the block underneath the right leg, pointing it to the back of the room, allowing your shoulder, your left shoulder, to come down and yourself to spiral through your spine here. Your next inhale, reaching that block up, just like our thread the needle sort of shape, and then bring that block open. Your arm opens up as far as you can possibly bring it. And then exhale, we'll weave that object underneath the leg and have a look at it. So if you like to match your movement with your eye line, kind of connecting that left brain so that you can start to notice and feel the spiraling of your hips. Also, there's a spiraling happening underneath your right leg. And then there's also a big spiraling happening through your spine, all the way up from your hips to your shoulder to your neck. So we'll just keep going a few more times. Threading the needle through, have a look at the object, look at your hand, and go the whole way, the whole breath. So sometimes a motion that's challenging, we speed through it. So see if you can give yourself all of those good opportunities to strengthen. Palm faces up, your right palm, feeling it out on the back of your arm. Inhale to reach up, and then exhale to weave through. We'll inhale to reach up one more time, reaching up and open. And then exhale, bring that block just in front of you, or the object in front of you. Straighten up the legs, point the toes in and the heels out, and then give yourself that forward fold, that wide-legged fold. So you can activate it by extending or drawing up your left knee, or your knees, both your kneecaps, lifting them up, the quads. Feel the backs of your legs. The differences in your arms, you might feel more activation in your right arm. It might feel a little bit tired, and your left arm is just super excited to go through its flow time. In through the nose, out through the nose, drawing the belly in. And see if you can locate those lower abdominal muscles and purposefully pull them toward you to fold a little farther over. And then inhale to a half lift, coming up halfway. Toes point slightly out, heels in. Bring your hands to your hips. And then push through your feet and lift yourself all the way up to standing. Inhale to reach the arms up. And then exhale, bending the knees, the elbows toward the ribs, so squat down again. Feel the difference on the inner edge of your your right thigh. Inhale to reach up. Then exhale to come back down and through. A couple more times. Inhale. Reaching, lengthening, and exhale, squeezing, strengthening. One more time. Inhale. And exhale, come down to squat, and then hinge your hips and fold forward, turning those toes still slightly out and heels slightly in. So we'll find that squatted shape. The knees in line with the hips if available, if able to try. And then push your feet away. Again, finding the back of your left forearm on top of the top of your left thigh with your palm facing up. So create this stable foundation here. And your right knee can bend a little or bend a lot. It's just there to kind of keep you stable and brace you. So let's grab a hold of our object or no object. Even a fist that we can watch is fine too. So we'll weave our arm, the right arm, underneath the left leg and just hold it there for a moment. Notice what's happening here. Rolling our shoulder in, squeezing our belly, coming into this twist. Your next inhale, bring that object or that hand up toward the sky. Open up your pectorals and let your arm fall back a little bit. Just take a moment to feel it. And then when you're ready to flow, exhale, weave through and past underneath. Watch the object if your eyes are open. Watch your hand if your eyes are open. And use the whole breath. Opening up, leaning back, getting curious with your spine. So you can close your eyes and just start to feel out what's turning. We're rotating a little bit through the inside of the left hip as well. So we're turning our pelvis, we're turning the hip. The sternum is coming with us. The sternum, the center of our chest, is starting to point down toward our left leg. It's just enjoying this little opening. Your heart opens up as you reach up. And then you can hug in as you come in. So we'll just do a few more. Go with the pace of your breath. Watch as we go. And maybe if you're not left-handed, this one's a little more challenging on the left side, leaning into the left leg. Keep your left hand, palm facing up. And just a couple more. Reaching through. Giving that time and space for strength to kick in. And then last time weaving past and last time reaching up. So reach back up as high as you can. And then come back down and set the object to the side. Coming into fold, so we'll turn those toes in, heels slightly out, and let yourself sink down in between your legs. Maybe there's something softer here for you now. Pull your feet apart, lift your kneecaps, lift your quads. Maybe bring your hands underneath your face, and then we can start to wrap the elbows in. So draw the elbows in so your forearms are parallel to each other. Then push your hands away from you to see if you might be able to feel some opening in your upper back. You might be able to fold a little deeper with that extra little bit of grip. Lifting the kneecaps, lifting the quads, pulling the feet apart, lengthening the backs of the legs. Big breath here. Enjoy the opening in the upper back. And then coming up halfway, inhale, fingertips. Exhale, hands to your hips. Turn your toes out a little, and then inhale to reach yourself back up. And we'll heel toe our feet toward each other, just kind of wiggling them in one at a time, and then walking ourselves to the top of the mat. So coming up into the top or comfortable position with our feet hip width apart. Inhale, reach the arms up. And exhale, fold over the legs. Take your time if you like. Slow it down if you like. Inhale, a half lift. And exhale to release. Inhale, rise up or roll up or reach up toward the sky. And then fold all the way down, swan dive down. Fold so deep you could plant your fingers. Hop or step back to a plank shape. You can be kneeling or lifted knees. If our knees are lifted, we'll continue to push the toes forward. Inhale through your plank. Exhale, elbows pin in, lower down to the belly. Find the tops of your feet to press, the pelvis to ground. Inhale, reaching the chest up, looking up. Exhale to come back down. We'll do that a couple more times. Tuck the chin in, find your forehead. Inhale to reach up. Exhale to come back down. One more time. Inhale, peeling up, pull your hands toward you. Lift up a little higher. Exhale to come down. We'll tuck the toes under, push into the ground with your hands, come up onto your knees, and then untuck your toes and draw your hips back toward your heels, walking your hands back with you, coming into a child's pose. And if you did have an object with you, you could place it under your forehead for a little bit of space. Even if your head does reach the ground, it might feel nice to elevate the neck a little bit and find a little less tension in those upper kind of trap muscles that are attached to your neck and your shoulders. And we'll stay here for another few breaths, so maybe 3 more breaths. Take your time, breathe. It's also my absolute favorite place to wiggle, so if you find you like to sway your hips a little side to side, and take your time and move around or be still. And one more sweet breath, fold it up in this compressed shape. So having those legs long and open, we can now fold them up and find those creases in the knees and the hips. We'll bring the hands out long, walk them toward you, zip your knees together and come to sit on your heels just for a moment. So you can have your heels pointed directly up and kind of tucked under your sits bones, or you can roll your heels out and sit on the insides of your feet, as long as your knees feel okay to be kind of rotated out and the lower bits of your legs feel okay to rotate out. We'll only stay here for a little while. So inhale to reach your arms directly up. And then exhale to twist over to the left. So we're just gonna place our right hand on the left hip, swing your left hand behind you, just find the back of your hand toward your right hip. So we'll draw open the shoulder, just lifting up through the torso with our inhale, just feeling this long line of breath. And exhale, see if you can twist a little more. Maybe you can look beyond your back shoulder, adding in the cervical spine. So finding another little rotation here. And then inhale, just coming back to center, relaxing the arms. Exhale to settle in the center. Inhale, reach your arms up. And then exhale, pivot yourself over to the right. So your left hand just comes to your right hip and your right arm. Your elbow can bend and the back of the hand can just come toward your left hip. And inhale to reach tall and long with your spine. Exhale to twist a little deeper, maybe gather the belly in or gather the abdominals in, and perhaps looking beyond the back shoulder. So finding a cervical spine twist 2. One more. And then softly releasing the hands, bringing your torso back. And take an exhale, settle into center. Inhale, reach the arms up, big breath open. And then exhale, plant the hands in front of you, lift your hips up off your heels, separate your knees, and tuck your toes. And we'll take a moment here just through a couple cat and cows. Again, you could close your eyes, tipping the tail up, rippling through the spine, lifting the chin, and then rounding up through the spine, starting with the tailbone, pushing yourself through in the upper back into the chin and chest. And one more time, inhale, reaching the tail up, the tailbone, that sacrum unfurls, and then we start to open up the chest. And then tuck yourself in, rounding yourself up, rippling through the spine. As you're in this rounded shape, toes are tucked, push into the ground with your feet to lift your knees. Push your hands away from you to lift your hips up toward the sky, coming into down dog. And again, we can find a little motion, a little movement if that feels good for you to do. And if we'd like to stay in this down dog, we can stay. If we'd like a little flow through, we can flow. So coming forward into your plank. If your knees are lifted, pushing yourself with your toes, leaning past your wrists, and then float down toward the ground. Tops of the feet press. Inhale, pin your elbows in, tops of the feet engaged. And then exhale, come back down to the ground. Come back up to downward dog. Use your knees if you like to. Inhale to look between your thumbs. Exhale, hop or step toward your hands. If you step really lightly and really tinily, if that's a word, really mini steps toward your hands, you feel your abdominals almost kind of gather in a little more, so it's a little more work. Inhale to a half lift. Exhale, release everything. Inhale, rise up, push through your feet, lift your fingers up toward the sky. Exhale, hands to the center of the chest. Inhale, up we go, reach the arms. Exhale, fold over. This hugging and lengthening. Inhale, a half lift. And exhale to fold deeply. So fold so deep you could bend your knees and find your fingertips. Then we'll pick up the left knee and step the left foot back behind you onto the ball of the foot. So take a moment here to feel it out. We want to try to straighten our front leg, so that might require you to hop your left foot forward a little. So you can give a little momentum and hold it forward. So just see where that is. See where you can find the straightest right leg possible. So you might have to walk that leg up really, really close. You might walk it a little farther, or just start with a little micro bend and see how it feels. If your fingertips don't touch the ground, you could use, even if you have a couple textbooks to put on their ends, you can kind of hold onto those. Or if you have a block handy, you can hold onto a block. We're just gonna have a look at our feet too. Wiggle your right foot out to the edge of your mat. So give yourself some room in between your feet. And if we find balance is okay for us, we can place our hands on the shin or on the leg somewhere, the ankle, or if you can reach the ground, fingertips. So just starting to find some space here in the back of your right leg. So it doesn't matter where it is, doesn't matter how you find it, just seeing how we can shift our body here. So this is the really kind of intricate, subtle way to rotate through your hips and your spine. So we're gonna try to draw the right hip back behind us and shifting the weight into the right foot. So you can feel the weight shift forward a little as you shift your right hip back. And as we shift our right hip back, imagine you're hugging your left shoulder to your left hip. So we're kind of swaying ourselves a little bit to the side. You're drawing your right hip back into the right foot and hugging your left shoulder toward your left hip. And you can go as far as you want to see what feels most of interest to your body. And then start to draw the left hip back and the right hip forward. So when you draw the left hip back and the right hip to the side and forward, you feel the weight shift maybe a little bit into the back foot. And then you might start to hug your right shoulder toward your right hip. So you can push kind of down through your left hand and push it a little bit forward, squeezing those limbs together, squeezing your right shoulder to your right hip. And just take another breath here to feel it. And then we'll sway again. We'll send the right hip back, the left hip forward. You can even notice the flesh of your standing leg of your right foot kind of moving around with you. And we're squeezing the left shoulder to the left hip. And just feel the weight change in your feet. It might feel a little different, and you might also lift up your back heel a little more, or you might draw it down a little more. Just see what feels interesting for you. And we'll do this a couple more times. And if you find some flexibility here and it feels pretty safe to be here for you, you can sway it a little quicker. You can squeeze left shoulder to left hip. You can squeeze right shoulder to right hip. Notice how the weight changes for you. Front foot to back foot. Leaning in, coming into the front foot when you go to the left maybe. Maybe you feel it more in your left. And then just a couple more times. Squeezing your right shoulder to your right hip. Especially noticing those hamstrings and adductors up and down your right leg. And then coming back to center, we'll slowly walk our hands up our right leg, surrounding the knee. Soften the knee, bend the knee so that you can plant the fingers down. And then step your left foot forward to meet your right. And you can just take a moment in forward fold, really noticing the differences in the backs of your legs. Inhale to a half lift. Exhale, folding deeply. Inhale, reach up, fingertips all the way up toward the sky, noticing all the differences in the spine. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale, reaching up again. And exhale to fold over your legs. And we'll fold so deeply we can plant our fingers. Option to step back into plank and find a flow. You can be in down dog or child's pose instead. We'll inhale through our plank. Exhale to float down toward the ground as gracefully as you can. Tops of the feet, the pelvis ground. Lifting the shoulders, pinning the elbows in. Exhale to come back down. Tuck your toes, come up through your knees or into plank and then downward dog. Pedal your heels, feel the backs of your knees, and then inhale to look between your thumbs, hop, step, or baby walk, little steps toward your hands. Folding over your legs, soften through your shoulders, shake your head, no, 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 and yes, yes, yes. Inhale, a half lift. Exhale, fold over. Inhale, rise, reach your fingers, lift your body, extend all the way up toward the sky. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale again, reaching up. And exhale, fold over. And fold so deep you can bend your knees. Find your fingertips, stepping your right foot back. Finding yourself on your ball of your foot. Trying to straighten up your left leg as much as you can. So walk your fingers in, hop your right foot forward as much as you need to. A little micro bend is fine, but just finding a little bit more of an intensive stretch in the back. And then you can wiggle your left foot out to the side, finding lots of space for your hips. So you can frame your front foot or you can bring it on the inside. You can find a block. You can find balance by placing your hand on your shin if that's where you are. It's just that little extra challenge of balance. And then just stay here in space for a moment, see how you're feeling, reaching your crown forward and your tail back. Just finding a parallel-ish shape with your torso to the ground, relative to the ground. And then notice where the weight is in your body. You can lift your back heel quite a lot to help straighten your front leg. We're going to start to draw the left hip back and the right hip forward. So see if you can just sink it back a little bit, finding that really subtle but really intense rotation down the back of your leg into your hip. Your weight maybe shifts into your left foot, the front foot, as you start to try to hug your right shoulder to your right hip. So hugging that side waist, drawing that space together and staying for a moment, staying a little longer. And then slowly going over to the other side. So you can again notice the flesh of your foot sort of moving and transferring as you bring your left hip back, your right hip back, and your left hip forward. Hugging your left shoulder to your left hip. The weight maybe is more into the back foot, possibly. Maybe it's more into the right. Just notice how that shifts around your body. And then we'll go to the other side, so sending your left hip back, right hip forward, the right shoulder toward the right hip. Using the grip of your fingers, looking at the grips of your feet, and then at this point maybe you lower your heel a little bit or you lift your heel up really high, just seeing what is most of use for your body in this shape. And then over to the left shoulder to left hip. Maybe the weight transfers to the back foot. And if this feels relatively soft for you, you can transfer a little quicker. You can sway your hips, so the right hip forward, left hip back, left hip forward, right hip back, squeezing your shoulder toward your hip. Just a couple more times, working through this very subtle shift and change. In through the nose, out through the nose. Looking at your foot maybe and just noticing the transfer of weight, the movement through the flesh. And then coming back to center when we feel ready, when we feel like we've done the same amount on each side, walk your hands up toward your knee. Surround your knee with love so you can bend through the knee. Planting your fingers, hop your right foot forward to meet your left, coming into forward fold. And soften yourself out here. You can take your feet a little wider if you like to. Take your head into hanging off of your neck, shaking yes and no. Inhale to half lift, lengthening your spine. And exhale, folding nice and deep, folding so deep you can plant your palms. Hop or step back into plank and maybe one last vinyasa before we come into a Shavasana. So let's bring ourselves forward, stretch out those legs. Exhale, come down to the belly. Tops of the feet press down as you lift yourself up. Find your pelvis grounding too. And then exhale to fold back down. Tuck your toes, come up through the knees. So press our hands away to lift the torso, lengthen the arms. And then untuck your toes and let your hips crawl back toward your heels, folding your legs up in this kind of opposite sensation. Then finding all of that length, we can finally compress our legs. So again, same thing here. We can support the forehead if that feels necessary to do or nice to do. You can find a block, you can find your hands, you can wiggle through your hips. This might feel kind of nice to do at this point, and into your knees and thighs. You might rock your forehead across the ground. And we'll stay here for 3 more nice, sweet breaths, taking our time in the journey of the breath. And on your next inhale, reaching your fingertips as far forward as you can, about shoulder width apart. Grip through your finger pads like a little cat claws. Pull yourself up off your heels with your fingers. And then bring your hands back underneath your shoulders. Just a couple of catted cows, knees under hips. You can close your eyes and just move through your spine. Tilting the tail, lifting the heart. And then tilting the tail in, rounding the spine. Inhaling or exhaling, opening up the tail, rippling through, and then tucking your tail in, rounding it up, sending the spine to the sky. And we'll come into neutral and keep your eyes closed here. Swing the lower halves of the legs over to the side and sit on your hip. Bring your legs forward in front of you. See if you can try to keep your eyes closed. We'll scoot our bums about halfway down our mat, so you might have to open your eyes to find that space. Bring ourselves into staff pose, a little bit of space between the feet. And if you do have this block or some object available that you can just squeeze between your feet, you can find anything to squeeze between your feet, maybe even just a book. You can squeeze, squeeze, squeeze the insides of your feet, toes point up, heels point down. Inhale to reach up, eyes closed, just reach into this L shape, and then squeeze your feet together, exhale, fold over. Come into forward fold. The hands can frame your legs, you can aim your heart to the toes, or if it feels good to just round into your spine, you could round into your spine. Squeeze the block, squeeze the object in between your feet. Feel the inner lines of the legs engage, the pelvis and your root engage here. And then keep squeezing. Inhale to reach your arms up. Exhale, twist yourself over to the left, placing your right hand on the outside of your left leg, avoiding your knee if you can, or bring it over to your hip. And then bringing the left fingertips behind your spine. Push your fingertips away from your spine to peel open your shoulder. And then maybe you look in that direction as well. Squeeze the block or squeeze the object with your feet. Lift into your spine. Push into your fingers. Open up your chest. One more breath. And then exhale back to center. Soften everything up so you can let go of the squeeze. Maybe wiggle your feet around a little or paddle out the backs of your legs. And then we'll come back to that nice sturdy shape. So we'll squeeze the feet together, squeeze them into that object, whatever you have, even if it is a pair of socks. The idea of just squeezing and gripping into something, giving your left brain something to tether onto. Lifting the arms up, inhale. And exhale, twisting over to the right. So your right fingertips come behind your spine, your left hand on the outside of your right leg, avoiding the knee if you can, but it's okay for a little bit of pressure. And then push your fingertips away from your spine to open up the arm, to open up the shoulder, spin through the arm, rotate through the arm. Then maybe you look in that direction too, still squeezing the object between your feet. Feeling that stability and strength and power. One more breath. And then exhale back toward the center. Remove the object. We can leave it behind. Bending the knees, planting the feet. Scoot yourself down so that we can roll down onto our backs, bringing the knees toward the chest.
Give yourself a moment of love, a moment of compassion, of softness. Hug yourself in. You can rock side to side. In through the nose and out through the nose. Giving yourself that time to slow down, to slow your breath. You can work through your spine. You could hold your knees a little bit open and rock across that sacral space yet again. So just bring your knees away from you and toward you. Finding tenderness in that point, gentleness. And then set the feet down with the knees bent. We'll go ahead and bring the feet nice and wide. Bring the arms out to either a cactus sort of shape or a T shape. You can even place them on your torso if you like. We'll just let the knees fall over to the right. Just the weight of the legs fully fall over to the right. And especially paying attention to that left thigh rolling inward. And if this is a good shape to be in, you can stay here, or you can pick up your right foot and place it on the outer bit of your left leg. And then allow that weight to tug the leg down. And feeling openness, a little stretch across the belly, a little stretch across your left hip. I think we have something like 20 muscles that cross our hips, across the hip bone. So you're working into probably most of them by stretching into this and giving yourself a little bit of that facilitated stretch by adding the weight of your right foot. And if it doesn't feel good to have your foot on there, then definitely just slide it off and enjoy that wide twist. Then when we feel ready, if the foot's on the leg, we'll take it off. Bringing the knees back up toward the sky and then lowering the legs over to the left, just letting them fall to the left. Especially paying attention to that right thigh rolling inward. And if that variation felt good on the other side, you could pick up the left foot and place it on the outside of the right leg, adding that little extra weight, that little extra tug, a little extra stretch across the right hip, thinking about all those muscles crossing that line. Breathing deeply into the softest part of the lowest part of your belly so you can feel some stretch in the skin. And one more nice, soft, sweet breath here, being as heavy as you possibly can. Then taking that foot off of the leg if it's there, bring the knees back up. Give yourself one last hug in, one last rounding of the lower back, little gratitude squeeze. And then coming into a nice final relaxation shape, so a little Shavasana. You can reach your feet out long if you like. If you prefer to be on your belly, then totally roll over onto your stomach. That'll be nice if you're used to sleeping that way. Maybe it's comforting for you. And if you have anything you like to add into your Shavasana, you can find it. You can find a blanket, you can find socks, you can find a little extra weight on your belly. And just let your feet roll out if you're on your back. If the lower back feels tender, you can bend the knees. Bring the feet a little wider and let the knees fall toward each other. Give yourself that ultimate support. So we can close our eyes if you feel comfortable with that idea. If you'd prefer to have a soft gaze, maybe there's something beautiful you can softly gaze upon. But for now, just letting our bodies be really heavy and soft. Coming back to that visual of our oxygen penetrating every little fiber of our muscles, and every little fiber and fibrous piece of our bone into the marrow. We can start to imagine that oxygen flowing into the blood around our skull, around and inside of our brain. And then when we exhale, we can imagine we're not only ridding ourselves of what we don't need, we are also giving something else away to the environment. So we take in something that's given to us, and then we change it. We transfer it into a different kind of energy, and we exhale and give some of that energy away. And as you lay here, imagining your left side of the brain as your animal body, and the right side of your brain as your divine. So your animal body is aware of your temperature, aware of your location, aware if you've eaten or not, if you're hungry or not. And your divine is expansive, goes a little beyond this physical realm. So invite both of those sides of your body, both of those sides of your brain to intermingle. And I'll leave you here in silence for a couple of minutes, going into that space, into that coexisting space. And I promise I'll bring you back when it's time to come back. And staying exactly where you landed, feeling that trickling of consciousness, that left brain, again giving you that flood of information. And still connecting to the divine, still bringing it with you into that logic, into that structure, into that calculative mind. Bring that creativity, that expansiveness with you into your body, into your day, into your life. Big inhale, feel the opening. Allow that to be your first movement your body decides to make is the breath. Great big Buddha belly. And a great big letting go. Then step back into your body. Put your body back on. Bring your divine into this animal body. So maybe we think of our hands and our feet like gloves and boots. So you start to wiggle into our fingers and toes. Maybe you squeeze your hands into fists and your toes, and then open up your fingers and your toes wide. Just kind of reaching back into these hands and feet. And finding your wrists and your ankles, reaching your arms alongside the ears and pointing your toes to the end of your mat. There's a great big stretch, opening up the whole line of your body. Maybe you wiggle a little side to side and drawing your knees in toward your chest, maybe one at a time, or scooping them both in. Again, reconnect with that connection to your spine and your hips. You can rock again side to side. You can release the knees open if that feels nice for you, finding that sacral kind of rocking sensation that we visited a couple of times already. And then bring your knees in tight. We'll go ahead and rock over, roll over to your right side. Bring your right arm underneath your head as a little pillow and just rest in this shape for a little breath. And start to extend your left leg long. Press into your left hand to come back up. Hopefully it's an easier transition. And coming into a seated shape again. So coming into a cross-legged, or if you're lucky enough to have a little wall behind you, you can rest into the wall. And just sitting up nice and tall, closing your eyes, and taking a moment to notice your core, notice your torso holding you in this space. holding you upward. Your spine, happy, aligned, twisted, moved. I invite you to place one of your hands on your heart space and the other hand on your belly. And just bend a little bit into the first knuckles of your fingers to mimic a little bit of a hug. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose. Big sigh through the mouth if you like. My heart is at ease, knowing what's meant for me will not pass me by. And what passes me by was not meant for me. Just keep our eyes closed. Inhale to reach the arms up. Great big circle. Gather what you need, expansiveness, openness, and bring it down to your heart center on your exhale, hands through the heart. Keep your eyes closed and just take a moment of gratitude, a moment to plant those seeds of rotation, of movement, of curiosity. Om Shanti Shanti. Thank you so very much for joining me.